Hey guys, Eric with Verus Engineering today, and we're going to be installing some rear diffuser strakes on an R35 GT-R. This is my buddy Nunu's GT-R, and we're going to be doing the diffuser strakes, which we developed basically solely from CFD data, and they're pretty neat little units, carbon fiber, and they bolt on to your factory diffuser. Basically, these improve performance of the factory diffuser by keeping that horseshoe vortice off the wheel, off of the diffuser. So basically, we're allowing the factory diffuser to actually function better by improving the flow on the diffuser itself. We also took it a step further and then used an adjoint, which is basically a fancy word for an optimization software within ANSYS to basically determine this trailing edge shape. And we were able to extract a little bit more performance by basically manipulating this shape on all four of the strakes. These units are made out of carbon fiber. Again, they bolt on to the factory diffuser after a few holes are drilled. Let's get to the install.
Okay, so let's go over what comes in the kit with your carbon diffuser strakes. You're gonna have a hardware kit so that you can install everything. We're gonna have a drill template so that we could drill the holes in the OEM diffuser panel. And then of course you're gonna have your 4 carbon diffuser strakes. All right guys, tools that you're gonna need in order to install the diffuser strakes. Here we go. You're gonna want a drill, 1/4 inch drill bit, 1/8 inch drill bit for the pilot. You're gonna want a cutting tool of some sort. I like my air saw, Eric hates it. A cutoff wheel will work just as well if that's what you have. You'll need a tape measure to measure your cuts, a paint marker in order to mark your cuts. You're going to need a, what is this here? 4mm, oh boy, 4mm Allen socket or hex key, a 5mm Allen socket or hex key, clip removal tool, or a flathead screwdriver might work just as well in your case. 12mm socket, 10mm socket, and a ratchet of your choosing. All right guys, so as I've been told, there are 2 different versions of the diffuser panel. We currently have on this car the version that will require a bit more trimming. If you don't need as much trimming on the outside, then you don't need as much trimming on the outside. If you do need to trim, then these instructions will be pretty helpful. Basically, it's this outer piece here. We're just gonna take a bit of material off, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, we're gonna end up actually taking off the entire diffuser panel so that we can work either on a workbench or on the ground or on a cart, whatever makes it easier for you. In order to do that, we're gonna use our clip removal tool. We're gonna use a 12mm socket and a 10mm socket. I'm gonna use an impact and cheat, but obviously a ratchet will do the same thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the panel, and then we'll come back to showing you how we start mounting the strakes on it. All right guys, in addition to removing the diffuser plate, the center diffuser plate, if you wanna call it that, we're gonna also have to remove this rear corner piece, if you will. Basically, same as before, we're gonna have to use the clip removal tool, a 10mm socket and a 12mm socket, and remove this. We're gonna have to do a little bit of trimming on this as well to fit the outer strakes. All right guys, we've got our diffuser panel removed from the car, and we have our template kind of laid over it, just to show you guys kind of how the template is shaped, although maybe a little difficult for you to see the lines. Basically, I'm gonna fold this in half, 1/4. You will see several areas where there are contours. So these 2 contours here are going to line up with this cutout here and this little dimple on the diffuser panel. So what I'm gonna do now is take our pair of scissors and chop this up, or why did I say chop? Cut the template out and begin taping it up to the diffuser panel so that we can start drilling the holes. All right, as you can see, we got the template cut out and we have it taped to the diffuser panel. Next thing we're gonna do is you'll notice that there are a series of circles with if you want to call them crosshairs or crosses, for your center points. You're going to want to basically pilot drill the centers with an 1/8 inch bit, and then we're going to step all of the holes out to a 1/4 inch. Now, you may notice that this is not 1/8 of an inch. All of my 1/8 inch bits are either broken or missing. So I'm going to use whatever random size this is and then step them out. And now we'll do the 1/4 inch. All right, we got our center strake holes drilled out and ready for install. So now we're going to move to the outer strakes. Now the outer strakes can be basically identified by this curve here, and also the strake itself has a bit of a curve, and it's got this little indent here. So you're going to want to grab both sides, and what we're going to do is trim the end pieces off here. So in order to do that, you want to basically line up the strake with the outer set of holes on the edge of each side of the diffuser plate. Line them up, kind of just eyeball it at first, center them up, and then you're going to want to take a marker and basically trace an outline of where the strake will contact the diffuser plate, and that will be your trim line. You can also use a piece of painter's tape, but I find a marker is a bit easier to use with one hand. So I'm going to mark both sides, I'm going to trim it, and then I'm going to show you guys what that looks like, and then we'll come back and install the strakes to the diffuser plate. All right, we have our outer pieces trimmed off so that we can fit the outer strakes. Those are going to be installed afterwards, after the diffuser plate gets installed back up onto the car. Right now we're going to install the 2 inner strakes before we install it back on the car, and in order to do that, we're going to use our 16mm long button head cap screws with the M6 serrated nuts and 18mm washers, and I'll show you what those are right now. So this is your bolt and washer combination, and here is the M6 serrated nut. I'm going to go ahead and start all these bolts now, and then once they are all started, I'm going to snug them up just a little bit. All right, all the bolts are started. That's 10 M6 button head cap screws with the 18mm washers and 10mm hex head serrated M6 nuts. That's a really long-winded way to say M6 nuts. Anyways, so you can, if you want, use a 10mm ratchet or wrench on the back side, or top side to hold it back. But given the nature of the serrated nuts and the fact that the carbon on the back side of this is not exactly smooth, they should basically stay in place and resist turning while you go to tighten everything up. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up. I guess I should mention that you want to make sure that these are pretty even with each other. Usually that just means getting the bolt in the middle of the slot that is on the mounting flange for the strakes. So I'm going to tighten these up now, and then we'll get to putting this back on the car. All right, we got these all tightened up. They might be a 1/4 turn past the bottom. We're looking at maybe 6 to 8 foot-pounds here. You really don't need to overdo it. You're just trying to make sure that the nuts don't back off of the bolts while you're driving down the road. So we're going to go ahead and put the diffuser plate back up on the car and start mounting up the outer strakes. All right, so with both corner pieces removed on either side, we're actually going to end up trimming it so that it can fit the outer strakes. But basically what you want to do here is, if you can see this vertical portion, this like lip that kind of comes up, we're going to want to measure 5.5 inches. You can't see it that way. About 5.5 inches from the edge on this side, and mark it, and we're going to cut that portion of this off. You can use a cutoff wheel, you can use a sander, Dremel tool, whatever works the best for you. Basically, I'm gonna use a cutoff tool and then I'm gonna sand it down to make sure it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now and then I'll show you what it looks like. All right, so I just wrapped up cutting and sanding this piece down. You can see basically, again, about 5.5 inches from there to there, and sanded it flush with the rest of the panel. Hopefully, you could see that. So now these are ready to go back up on the car. Now we're ready to put the diffuser plate back up onto the car and start installing the outer diffuser strakes, and then we'll do a final torque on all the bolts, make sure everything is tight. So this ought to be a little entertaining. Hopefully I can get this up there by myself without needing a helper like Eric. So here we go. I did it! All right guys, we've got the diffuser plate mounted back up to the car. We also have the center strakes bolted up and tightened. Last step here is to bolt up the outer strakes. We're going to use the hardware that we provided in the kit, not the OEM hardware. So the forward 4 bolts from here forward are going to be the M6 bolts that are 20 millimeter long. They should be button heads. The rear bolt here, which is going to go towards the rearmost spot on the car, is going to be the M8 variety, also button head. We are going to use the washers that are provided in the kit. That should be 18 millimeter for the M6 and big for the M8. So we're going to go ahead and bolt these up, and we're going to make sure that they are even, and then we're going to go for final torque and we'll be done with the install. All right guys, once you have the bolts started and everything is in the correct place, you got the strakes lined up, go ahead and give them their final torque and tighten them down. And that's it, we're all done with the install. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, be sure to email us at sales@verus-engineering.com. And until next time.